Hello and welcome to News Center. IndiGo CEO Peter Elbers claims that their operations are stable and the airline is back on its feet. This comes on a day when more than 400 IndiGo flights were cancelled nationwide, still lower than the over 500 cancellations recorded yesterday. The aviation regulator has also trimmed IndiGo's winter schedule by 5%, amounting to a cut of about 115 flights per day. The decision follows a major disruption in IndiGo's operations, with more than 6,000 flights cancelled in just a week, stranding nearly 9 lakh passengers at airports across the country. The DGCA has directed the airline to submit a revised schedule by tomorrow. Addressing the Rajya Sabha, Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu said that no airline, regardless of size, will be allowed to cause hardship to passengers.
Going forward, the government is determined to build a more robust and competitive aviation ecosystem. Through our policies, we are encouraging more new airlines to start and operate in India, ensuring fair access to airport capacity and eliminating any possibility of duopoly, controlling connectivity and pricing in our skies. More airlines mean more choice, more affordability, and more resilience for the passengers. Operations are stabilizing fast. Safety remains fully in force. IndiGo is being held accountable. Passengers' convenience and dignity are being protected, and long-term measures are underway to make India's aviation sector stronger and more passenger-centric.
IndiGo is back on its feet and our operations are stable. On December 5th, we could only fly 700 flights. Thereafter, gradually yet steadily improving to 1,500 on 6th, 1,650 on 7th, 1,800 yesterday, and today more than 1,800. As of yesterday, we are back of flying to all our 138 destinations in our network, and our on-time performance has also been normalized.
Joining us now is Vijay Gopalan, the Chief Financial Officer of Intellis Industries. He has served in the past as AirAsia's CFO in a previous stint. Thank you very much, Vijay, for joining us on the program. Let me begin by asking you, the government has now taken the action of reducing their flights by 5%, cutting down their flight schedule, the winter schedule, by 5%. But why did they increase the flight schedule for IndiGo, the winter schedule, by 6% earlier? Why were no checks done as far as their roster, their capacity to implement the new FDTL norms are concerned?
First of all, Parikshit, thanks for having me over in the show. It's a pleasure to be interacting with you. Look, the way the schedules are done is when you actually submit a particular route schedule during winter schedule or summer schedule. It typically goes through some basic checks, but I don't think I think it'll be a bit far-fetched to expect the government to check if a private airline is going to be having capacity to be able to operate. Especially, we are talking about a player who has 65% of the market share, right, Parikshit?
True, but Vijay, but also because there was the new flight duty time limitation norms were coming into effect.
No. The flight duty time limit norms, the phase one already came in July, and we haven't had any disruptions till now. If you really look at it, the incremental thing that kicked in was a night flight limits that kicked in from November. Otherwise, the 3648 was by and large there. Also coming to think of the fact that it's been in the making for 18 months. So I think the government was well within its rights to assume that a player like IndiGo would have the capacity to be able to service it. They have the aircrafts. So far, they've never had disruptions because of crew. So I don't know. I think it will be a bit unfair on us to pin it on DGCA, telling that they could have been a bit more careful. That's my view.
Right. I would also now like to ask you about what happens next. From your experience, how long do you think will it take for IndiGo to put things back on track?
A week max, Parikshit, because the regulations have been rolled back is what I understand. Now, if the regulations have been rolled back, then it's going back to where they were in October and early November. I genuinely don't see that being a problem. I don't think even passengers need to worry, but in a week's time, IndiGo will come back to normalcy.
Right. But why do you think this really happened? Because IndiGo, in its reply to the DGCA, a copy of which is with us as well, they said that the root cause analysis of this is being done, but multiple factors were at play. They had the time to implement these norms.
Parikshit, I'm going to be quite blunt here. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I don't think I'm going to buy. As an aviation reader who's been in the industry, I don't buy any of those things. I think while we need to be responsible in also trying not to we need to be responsible in our own response. I think IndiGo's response is doesn't eke off any accountability, and I'm a bit disappointed to say that. I think to say that there were multiple issues like weather and come on, it's not going to cause this disruption at this scale. We've had weather disruptions when I was in AirAsia. SpiceJet has had weather disruptions, and every airline has had disruptions because of weather, because of crew, but nothing at this scale. So I think they need to be a lot more transparent, and they need to be upfront and honest with what led to this and take corrective measures. Unless you say that, acknowledge the issue first, there's no way that you're going to take corrective measures.
Right. And reducing their flight schedule by 5% is just a very small action. It's just literally taking them back to what they were in the summer schedule. And it gives them some time to put things back on track. Having said that, what action can the government realistically take under law, under aviation rules?
See, that's a fantastic question, Parikshit. Now, whether this 5% is sufficient or not, it's a matter of perception. And I'll tell you why it's a matter of perception. Because now, let's say that you say that IndiGo needs to be penalized. They need to get their act together. Let's slash it by 10 to 15%. Now, who's going to be the end sufferer? It's going to be the consumers. The fares are going to increase. And forget anything else. The kind of time options that consumers have will not be available if we start slashing down IndiGo's departures. So it's a very fine balancing act that anybody has to do. 5% seems to be logical given that it causes minimal disruption because this is the summer schedule for 6 months that IndiGo had operated in. And therefore, it makes sense to ask them to go back there, fix their issues and come back. Anything beyond that may put the consumers at risk. And that's my concern.
Right. If the government now goes ahead and reduces capacity further, do you think the airline industry, the other airlines have the capacity to absorb that and fill in the gap?
Personally, I don't think so. Let's say you reduce it by another 5 to 7%. That's very, very significant given the size of our market. So is Air India geared for it? Air India is grappling with its own set of aircraft-related issues. Akasa, I think, is a bit of they still are a small player. SpiceJet is even smaller. We are talking about 2%, and SpiceJet is probably just now finding its footing. And also, this is my view that a lot of SpiceJet issues are not coming out in such a huge manner because of the scale. So if we were to slash down, I'm not very sure if others will be able to fill in the gap from a capacity perspective. What could end up happening is, instead of capacity being filled, the fares will start going up. And the current fare caps are no deterrent. We are talking about, and I'm based out of Chennai. So let's take a Chennai-Delhi flight. The fare cap is at 18,000 without taxes. So that's enough room for any of the other airlines to play around with. So I don't think that will help the consumers, is my point.
Right. So it won't help in the long run. But how does the government really set an example in this case? Because clearly, IndiGo knew that the flight duty time limitation norms have to be implemented. Everyone knows that they run a very lean machine to, keep the costs low, have flight operations which are almost literally neck to neck. But at the same time, what can the government do to put things back on track and set an example for the future?
Well, this is going to be difficult in this particular case. Normally, it would have been easy, but given the size of IndiGo, what are you going to do? Let's take telecom, for instance. You have two major players. You have Airtel and Jio. Let's say if one of them, God forbid, but if something happens to them, is the government going to make an example out of them? You don't have choices, and that's pretty much what's happening here. 65%, what example can we make? Let's be realistic. Whatever example you try and make out of IndiGo is going to affect the end users, the common men in this country. But having said which, there are a few things that the government probably can do. First of all, go through the slots that has been given to IndiGo to ensure that there are no monopoly of slots with IndiGo. See, when I used to operate in this industry, let's say we took a slot at 9 a.m. I personally witnessed IndiGo come in and ask for a slot at 8:50, 10 minutes before our departure, and drop the prices. So then that makes it absolutely unviable for a fledgling airline or a startup airline like ours to survive. So I think this is a great time for the government to go back, revisit some of those schedules, and ensure that there is no IndiGo flight within half an hour before or after a non-IndiGo flight. Let's say there's a SpiceJet flight that leaves. Ensure that there's no IndiGo flight half an hour before or after that. So at least that way you kind of cut down the monopoly of IndiGo and ensure that there are other airlines that can fly that route. This is one thing that comes at the top of my mind to ensure that these are quick fixes, short-term fixes. But long-term, Parikshit, I think the government needs to structurally look at why is aviation such a graveyard in our country. The number of companies that have died down. Structurally, our economy is not geared towards supporting aviation players, especially airline companies. We need to ensure that those structures are dismantled and recreated to ensure that airline companies can see profits so that foreign investors can come and invest confidently.
So you're saying that while the government is saying that we would want 5 or 6 more airlines, that cannot happen in the current structural ecosystem. We need changes so that they can be profitable.
Impossible, Parikshit. You're spot on. You're right. You've done it perfectly. Which investor is going to come, knowing very well that there's one player who's at 65% capacity, market size, and then every other player is making losses. And oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, there are at least 4 or 5 airlines that have wound up in the last 20 years. Tell me, why would somebody come? I have my fuel ATF, my aviation turbine fuel, where it's not governed by GST, but it's governed by state taxes. And some states' taxes are as high as 30 to 35%. 70% of my payout, airline companies' payout, is denominated in dollars, and my rupee is steadily depreciating and off late it's depreciating at an accelerated rate. So for the same aircraft, let's say the cost of an aircraft is $100, I'm making it up. 2 years back, I paid 8,000 rupees. Today, I'm paying 9,000 rupees. And are my airfares increasing commensurately? No. So when and we're not even getting into the infrastructure side of it. The pilots, the cabin crew, training facilities, are we geared to be able to turn out so many pilots? Given all these issues, let's think about it pragmatically. Why would any investor sink in about 3,000 to 4,000 crores initially into this industry?
Absolutely. That's an important point. But thank you very much, Vijay, for joining us with those very strong views from someone who's seen the aviation industry very closely. Let's hope the government is hearing. And there are things which they do which will help the situation in the long run, because whatever they do impacts the end consumer. We're going to take a short break here on News Center, but coming up on the other side, top US negotiators set to arrive in India today for trade talks. Both nations eye a framework agreement before year-end. Meanwhile, Trump trains his tariff guns on rice. Details on the other side.
"26 years of CNBC-TV18.